Here are the lines that are things that I won't cross. YouTube has created an environment where if you want to see growth, there's two things that a creator could do. This, in fact, a creator might take this away as a really great tip for growth. So I'm giving you some responsibility. You choose what to do with it. But I think this is information that should be out there. The algorithm doesn't care about you. It's math. It doesn't care. All it's looking at is the duration of videos and how long people are watching them, right? If an individual, doesn't matter how old they are, if the individual is staying with that video throughout the whole video, well, it must be good. So the algorithm will reshare it and it will categorize it and put it into different similar types of playlists, right?
Mm-hmm.
So understanding that, the temptation is, oh, well, I'll just make a really short video because people are going to be more likely to keep watching if it's a short video versus a long video. And to hold their attention, instead of engagement, I will stimulate. I will do shortcuts and I will do bells and whistles. And in between, I will hold up a product. Won't sell it directly because there's rules and regulations against that. But, I'll do some product placement. That's totally okay. A little bit of a get around. In my mind, it's worse than directly selling something. At least if if someone's directly selling you something, you can point out, oh, is that a commercial? But if it's subliminal, that's trickier. So you play those sort of games, you can grow very quickly. That's why we see so much of the same sort of thing on YouTube and YouTube Kids. I call it cookies for breakfast. It's the sweet, sugary stuff that, of course, a young kid is going to like. Of course they are. They're going to become addicted to it, right? We are too. Cookies for breakfast sounds like a great idea, but a responsible adult knows that a young child needs a healthy diet. They need more than just cookies for breakfast. Every once in a while, that's great. And yeah, you can make a healthy cookie. You can sneak in the oatmeal and the raisins, that's great. But to take the time to actually teach a child how to plant seeds and grow their own garden and harvest and make their own delicious treats that are fun, that takes time. So that's a lot of analogy. You can tell I'm a kids show host. But that's the difference. You can play the game with the short duration, quick sell stuff, or you can do the long form that really engages, and you can start to form trust and conversation. I purposefully make Danny Joe's Treehouse, the version that we've had for the past 3 seasons, look and feel retro. It looks like a kid's show from an adult's childhood. There's something nostalgic about it. I'm pulling from my own experiences and I'm honoring those that came before me. But in my back of my mind, I'm also thinking, I know that there's a parent that's missing that stuff. Going back to what we were talking about earlier with regression, you go back to the safe thing that you feel more familiar with. So that's a choice. And the kids don't necessarily care about that. They're not going to see that nostalgia at all. But the parents do. And I get a lot of emails from parents saying, man, this really reminds me of fill in the blank of the local kids show that they grew up with, So that pulls them in a little bit more. So we can start to get to know one another through the episodes. I also do a lot of, I call them winks and nods, during the story. It's almost like I can see the parent close by and I can take a moment to say, did you see that? Did you see what I just did? See a little reference that I just made? Maybe you can talk about that more later. I do lots of that sort of stuff. The episodes are just conversation starters. Like the goal really is for parents and caregivers and teachers to continue playing about what I'm putting out after the episode ends. And we're building out. It's not that you're just teaching the child. You are facilitating conversations between the child and their grown-ups. You're representing each individual family. You're trying to create an environment that is respectful of everyone's culture and everyone's identity and expression, and a safe place for people to really hear and see one another. And I truly believe we can do the same thing through digital environments. Well, I used to take an approach that I think the majority of children's media makers do, where I had the idea, and then I would say, this is what we're going to talk about. I'm going to teach you about what I think you should be learning. And that there's nothing wrong with that approach. But I've become much more interested in using active listening to the young child through the language of play and getting a sense of what many families are experiencing. So, for a modern term, would be looking for the trends, what's trending, but
Mm-hmm.
emotionally, what's trending among many families. And I can't just do that through the screen. So, I do a lot of work. Pardon me. I do a lot of work in classrooms throughout Baltimore City schools. I go in and I do small group play based therapies, lots of puppet work, um, but mostly just active listening. So I've got a childhood teddy bear that I use. I come in with the teddy bear and I hold it up slowly and I say, "How do you think Teddy's feeling today?" And then I'm quiet and I don't say anything until someone else says something. And there could be long periods of pause. Uh,
Mm.
but every time a kid will start naturally projecting based on nothing. Like I'm not even moving the teddy bear. I'm not giving it a voice or anything. Children and adults, we naturally project our thoughts and ideas and feelings onto objects. And in puppets that are fancy, like the Muppets, they do a lot of the work for you. They feel very alive with the moving eyes and the moving mouth and the almost like muscle structure underneath. But the stuff I use, they don't move at all. I want the child to do the work. I want their subconscious to take over. So they start projecting and they start telling me a story and they're pulling from their first and secondary experiences. And it might be verbal, it might be with words, but more so, it's usually through the language of play, nonverbal communication. So building up blocks, knocking them down, moving Teddy around in a certain way. Like you can pick up so much from that type of language. I compare it a lot to dream cycle stuff. In your waking state, you take in all of this information, you go to sleep and dream, and your subconscious takes over, and these surreal, weird things happen, but it's just your
Mm.
subconscious processing it, right? And then you wake up the next day, and hopefully you feel a bit rested, you're ready to move forward. And maybe you haven't solved all the issues, but you've processed it, right? That's rest.
Yeah.
So a young child at play is like a dreamer, but it's a lucid dreamer. It's a dreamer that's choosing, that's moving things around. They're making little choices along the way. And as an adult, the caregiver or the parent teacher, if we watch so carefully the way that young child's playing, we get a peek into their subconscious and we can start to do a little bit of detective work, and then we can guide that. We can facilitate a little bit. We can ask open-ended questions, or we can get into the language of play too, and just help the child find their own solutions. I think if I was building a school, it would be the type of school that I think would make my mom very proud. It would be the
Mm-hmm.
type of school that follows the lead of the child, and the type of school that doesn't need walls. Um,
Mm.
we need to keep our kids safe. We need to make sure that they're not being taken advantage of, that they're not becoming products. I think that's something else that we need to be very aware of right now. We're beyond just conditioning our kids to become consumers. In many ways, they're starting to be potentially sometimes being the things that are being consumed. They're being viewed as product, as brands, as kid influencers, as whatever else. That fame and fortune is an end goal instead of a side effect. Um, so I think it's important that we create these environments to keep them safe and give them the space to learn, again, critical thinking skills, empathy skills to navigate real life world and digital world. Um, but I don't think it has to come with walls. I think the type of school that I'm interested in is a one that is virtual and and one that is beyond these made up lines that we've drawn all over the place in our smaller communities, in our cities, division lines, in our country, around our world. Like, we made all that stuff up. It's one planet. We're one race. We're human beings, and we have many beautiful expressions and shapes and sizes and colors and cultures, but we're all one community, really. And if and now that we've got these tools where we can share these sort of thoughts and ideas and feelings, and communicate through translators, real or digital, whatever else, that's a great opportunity to share resources in a beautiful way. So I don't know exactly what the school will look like in the end, but I think it's more organic.
Mm.
I think it's about sharing instead of competition. And I think it's about listening to the child instead of dictating.